الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون وسواء عليهم أنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون أتخذ من دونه آلهة إن يردني الرحمن بضر لا تغني عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون وآية لهم الأرض الميتة وأحييناها وأخرجنا منها هبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم أفلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في السور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنى يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون ومن نعمره ننكسه في الخلق أفلا يعقلون وما علمناه الشعر وما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين لينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وظللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم ير الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو خصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقا قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي أنشأها أول مرة وهو بكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون أوليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون فسبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون صدق الله العلي العظيم. الفاتحة.
برائے تاجیر امام زمانہ بآواز بلند صلوات. ایک اور صلوات پڑھے محمد و آل محمد. بن ہاتھوں کے تم جو لیا بر دیتے ہو مولا احسان کرو مجھ پہ میں بندہ ہوں تمہارا مفلس ہوں بہت کر وہ بلا نہیں سکتا کیا تم سے چھپانا عباس سقائے سکینہ عباس دیتے ہیں سکینہ کی قسم اس لیے مولا ہے جعفر کا مولا یہ عقیدہ تم رد نہیں کر سکتے کبھی بھی یہ وسیلہ ہے پورا بھروسہ عباس سقائے سکینہ عباس سقائے سکینہ عباس سقائے سکینہ بآواز بلند صلوات. منظر بڑا عجیب ہے شبیر و مصطفیٰ منظر بڑا عجیب ہے شبیر و مصطفیٰ مقتل کی سمت جانے لگے شاہ کربلا اور نیند سے سکینہ کے چہرے پہ ورم تھا اور نیند سے سکینہ کے چہرے
نہ جاگے وہ عابد نشانہ ہلایا، نہ جاگے وہ عابد نشانہ ہلایا، اور اب ماں یہ کہتے بے شرما رہی ہے میری سکینہ کو نیند آ رہی ہے۔ میں خوش ہوں کہ سوئے کہ میری دلاری، میں قربان اس کے میں اب اس کے واری، بہت سہ چکی دکھ یہ غازی کی پیاری، بہت سہ چکی دکھ یہ غازی کی پیاری، مگر نفس کچھ اور بتلا رہی ہے میری سکینہ کو نیند آ رہی ہے۔ یہ شام غریبا کی جاگی ہوئی ہے، تماچوں کے در سے نہیں سو سکی ہے، ذرا اب گلے سے رسن جو کھلی ہے، ذرا اب گلے سے رسن جو کھلی ہے، سکون سے جو اب سانس لے پا رہی ہے میری سکینہ کو نیند آ رہی ہے، بانو یہ عابد کو بتلا رہی ہے میری سکینہ کو نیند آ رہی ہے۔ اور محمد وآل محمد صلوات۔ سورۃ المبارکۃ الفاتحہ۔
Hey, young woman, Karbala, or Muhammad wa Muhammad sallallahu. No, first slide number 2. Salawat ala Muhammad wa Muhammad. What your thought? Sure. I'm going to start with a few words of istighfar, inshallah. Please be sorry to me if you're here awake. Please recite Allah. Salawat ala Muhammad wa Muhammad. کریم کرب و بلا، کریم کرب و بلا، معجزہ دکھا دیجئے، کربلا یاد بہت آتی ہے بلا لیجئے۔ جس سے حافظ سے کربلا جانے کی مجھے پڑے۔ کریم کرب و بلا، معجزہ دکھا دیجئے، کربلا یاد بہت آتی ہے بلا لیجئے، کریم کرب و تڑپ رہا ہے بہت کربلا کی یاد میں دل تڑپ رہا ہے بہت کربلا کی یاد میں دل ایک بار مجھے پھر ایک بار مجھے کربلا دکھا دیجیے کربلا یاد
लगे या ज़हरा इतनी बेदर्दी से जालिम ने फिराया खंजर इतनी बेदर्दी से जालिम ने फिराया खंजर एक अंगूठी के लिए काट दी अंगूष्ठे हुसैन एक अंगूठी के लिए काट दी अंगूष्ठे हुसैन लाश पर शह की तुझे रहम नाया खंजर लाश पर शह की तुझे रहम नाया खंजर शिमरने पहले सकीना को दिखाया खंजर सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सूरतुल मुबारकतुल फातिहा Let us recite the ayah of Amma Yujibu 5 times for those who may be in need, who may be facing any calamities or any kind of sickness in this community and everywhere in the world, inshallah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Amma yujibu mustarra iza da'a wa yakshifu su. Amma yujibu أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعا أما يجيب Last with the loudest of your voices أما يجيب صلوات على محمد وعلى محمد
Sayyid Muhammad Hassan, my respected elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. Just a few reminders. We've been sending out emails. The deadline's approaching to complete the census. This is, again, a requirement. We do need to submit the information. Part of the information is collected from this census to the World Federation. And as well, we have other things that we're working on. That information will go into supporting some of the new systems we're putting in place for communications, financials, and other things that, again, we'll share the announcements and details at the upcoming meeting. So again, please complete that. It's online, takes about 5 minutes. It's really not anything. We're not collecting any personal information in the sense of social security numbers, date of birth, things like that. It is just basic information, name, address, phone numbers, emails, and then just some household information. That's the part that the World Federation asks that helps with some of the planning things that we're working on. Follow up to a meeting that we had early this past week regarding the micro school. So a lot of questions have come back. There was great attendance. I think we had over 30 plus people that actually signed up for the event. About 24 or so individuals did join the meeting, and the feedback was good. So there is a lot of excitement around this in the sense of it's another option for parents who may not want to send their kids to a public school to get started with an Islamic school. Now today, to be honest with you, we do not obviously have the facility, nor do we have the support in terms of the number of students and the ability to go get teachers. So this is a way over time that if we start with something like this, which is a hybrid approach. So for those of you in the meeting, you know what this is. For those of you who are not, very, very simple. The micro school basically is a hybrid program. Rise Academy, which is an established Islamic school run out of San Jose, California, by the Sabah Center, led by Maulana Abidi, oversees this program. Has well over 700 students that participate, that are signed up. Those who were at the meeting saw the effectiveness of the program, the rankings of the kids who attend this program compared to those nationally and as well those locally, even here in Pennsylvania, in terms of the academic tests that students take. It is an accredited program, educational program. I'm sure, Sayyid Al-Shara, I know you're familiar with this program. So again, really good program to be part of. The micro school is 2 parts, and that was first part that was covered at the session was the online. So those who are looking for an option, and I know there's a couple, I think 2 or 3, I forget how many, kids that are already in the program here from our community. You pay the tuition online, and that covers all the costs to run and hire the professional teachers that are training the kids online. The micro school is the component that is local. So there's additional cost to do that. Now, whether we started here as something once a week, twice a week, 5 days a week, we would still have to hire a local learning coach, 1 or 2, to run it. I've already inquired about the space here. There are 1 or 2 classrooms that we can start here to do that. And again, over time, as we grow the enrollment, and again, the need arises, and I said last time, we all need to have more children so we can have more kids to go to this school. This is something becomes more realistic as we get to our next destination, which is a new mosque. So we will schedule a follow-up meeting. I know there's a lot of interest in this for those parents who do want to get their kids enrolled. At least we can get started with the online training, online learning, and then we can progressively make the next step, which is a local micro school, having the kids gather here. I know many parents who may want to homeschool their children don't have that option because they're working. Right? So this is one avenue that you can do that because the kids can come here and they'll have a trained facilitator, learning coach that helps them with their online learning, and we can take the next step. So look out for that next meeting announcement, inshallah, after this is a busy week with Arba'in coming up. The week after, we should schedule that next follow-up meeting. But if you have questions in the meantime, parents who attended again, please forward your questions either between ourselves or those administrators at RISE. We can get your questions answered. Another reminder is we do still have the ongoing blood drive. Our participation level is very low. I don't think we even reached 10 donors yet. So those of you who can give blood, please sign up to go to one of the Miller Blood Bank centers and donate blood. They did actually send another request this last week. There's a really high need for blood donors in the Allentown area. So again, please, if you can and are able to donate blood, please do so. Programs that are coming up. This tomorrow night we'll be gathered here again to commemorate the 30th of the Shuhada of Karbala and Bibi Sakina. Tomorrow night, same time at 8 o'clock. Next week we start our Arba'in program on Saturday, and Chelum night is Tuesday, September 5th, and Chelum day is Wednesday, August 6th. We are starting our during the day to make sure that everyone can attend. We will get it done before Maghrib. Those of you who still need any letters for excuse letters for work or for school activities, please send a message to the secretariat at sitchba.org and we'll get a copy of that letter to you. And finally, I want to thank all the volunteers. It's been an overwhelming number of volunteers that have signed up to help with the Arba'in exhibit. Last time I spoke, I think there was still some uncertainty based on certain things that happened in recent weeks, whether this was going to be an interfaith event or not. This past week, Thursday, we were able to resolve those issues and concerns. That will be an interfaith event. It will be held right here at Asbury Church, and we are really looking forward to this event. So again, for those who are not familiar with what this was, I made announcements previously. It is to share with the world what Arba'in is, what is Ashura, who Imam Hussein is, and who Shia are. So again, this is going to be one of the milestone, I think, events that we've come together. And what I'm really impressed with is we have over 45 we're approaching 50 volunteers for this program. So that's what's, to me, all of us coming together to make this program work. We have writers, we have people in welcoming committees, we have people working for setup and cleanup, and people going to work on being ushers, walking our guests through. This is going to be a really, like I said, a milestone event for us and achieving us together working like this as a community. And there's a bigger one I announced that's going to happen in Ramadan, but I'm not going to talk about that tonight. We'll save that for after this program ends, and we'll get that going, because that's a much, much bigger event. But what we need right now is, again, we have mokibs, we have tents that are going to be set up to welcome those who typically, when we go to Iraq, it's the Zawars, those who make the pilgrimage to go pay their respects to Imam Hussein. So this event is twofold, because there'll be our community coming to do that, but as well, there'll be those that are coming to seek the knowledge of Imam Hussein, who he is. So it's very important, just like they do there, where they save up, where they give their savings to welcome those guests. We need to do the same. So right now, we are looking for people who are willing to sponsor one of the tents. Right now, we have half the tents that are covered. We have a medical tent that's already covered. The water tent's covered. We'll have a tea, chai, coffee tent, sherbet tent. These are all covered. Where we need help right now and donors for are the food items. Again, we're expecting between anywhere from 3 to 450, 500 people at this event. So again, maybe we all come together, whatever savings we have to give towards this, or if you want to bring the items, we need to know. So please reach out to myself. Tomorrow we'll send out an email. We actually have a team of some of our young youth that are helping with the MOKIB registration and donations. If they do reach out to you directly, or if you want to get in contact with someone other than myself, they will be available. So their names will go out tomorrow. Let's remember all our marhumin with the Surah Fatiha. And again, welcome to Sayyid Muhammad Hassan al-Shara. Always happy to have you here.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا أبا القاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله، صلى الله عليك يا مولاي، يا أبا عبد الله، يا حسين. ما خاب من تمسك بكم وأمن من لجأ إليكم. يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز والله فوزا عظيما. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن وعلى أولاد وعلى أصحاب الحسين، خصوصا سيدي ومولاي قمر بني هاشم كفيل الهواشم أبا الفضل العباس. السلام عليكم جميعا يا شهداء كربلاء، ورحمة الله وبركاته. أما بعد يقول الله في كتابه الكريم: وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وما محمد إلا رسول قد خلت من قبله الرسل أفإن مات أو قتل انقلبتم على أعقابكم. آمنا بالله. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلى الله عليه وسلم. I second in honor of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh. A third with your loudest voices in honor of the Imam of our time, Imam Sahib al-Asri wa zaman Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajah. Respected brothers, my dear fathers and uncles, sisters, my mothers and aunts, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. There is nothing certain in this life except one thing. No matter how hard you work to avoid it, it will always chase you. And it is going quicker at an exponential rate. And one day it will catch up with you, and that is the moment of death. They even say there are only two things guaranteed in life: taxes and death. But with taxes, some people find loopholes, so they avoid them. With death, no matter how many loopholes you bring, it will catch up to you. Because al-mawtu haqq, that death is your right. And subhanallah, from the teaching of the Messenger of God, that death is our right. The huquq, al-haqq, meaning that you are to place the right of others where they belong. That is to act upon justice. What is justice? To put things in the order that they deserve to be in. To remove someone from their family unjustly is unjust. To deprive someone from their inalienable right of food, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, that is called going against their rights. When the Messenger of God comes and states, al-mawta haqq, that death is your right. One thing we always need to remember is, for the longest time when we study rights, whether they are the Charter of Rights, whether they are the inauguration of the United Nations, 1948, you find the list of human rights. All of these, you and I would hate to be deprived of. The right to pursue anything that you desire, which is a desire of happiness that doesn't conform upon others. Go and do it so long as it makes you happy. The right to have your life in the sense of having access to medicine when accessible, having access to water and food. No one deserves to be deprived from water and food, even inmates in prisons. These are inalienable human rights. You notice the common denominator is that all of these are desirable. No one wants to be deprived from wealth, food, shelter, love, health. These are all rights we look and yearn for and chase. When Rasulullah comes and says, however, al-mawta haqq, that death is your right, it is one of the only, if not I believe the only one of these rights that people despise. There are people in the world today, if you ask them, are you afraid of anything? They will tell you nothing except death. Death, no one can deny, is a scary concept. I am not going to be lecturing here today, teaching you to look forward to it or to not be afraid of it. No, we fear that which we do not know. An-nasu a'da'u ma jahilu. People are at war with that which they do not know. This is a hadith in Nahj al-Balagha. People, if they are unaware of what's to come, they immediately fear it. People have never met another Muslim. Pew Research has shown that a vast majority of Islamophobes, a vast majority, over 3/4 of them, over 90% particularly, they hate Islam, they've never met a Muslim. There's a common denominator. I don't know, therefore I am afraid. Now, in the worldview and the paradigm of Islam Ahlul Bayt, nothing can be further stressed than the concept of the Akhirah. The concept of the Akhirah is stressed not to scare us, but to familiarize us with it, such that our right of death is not a moment that is scary, is not a moment that is fearful, is a moment that we are alerted and aware of. And in fact, it becomes a rahmah. Why? You ask anyone, when you were little, you would always say yes to the following question: do you want to live forever? Yes, 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 yes. But then you think about it, for the next trillion, quadrillion, however many numbers that come after that, there is no end to this. People think there has to be an end to the story. Maybe I've accomplished everything I want. How long do I need to see my loved ones perish? Enough is enough. There comes a point where a person, and I know many people, they're like, I probably met that point right now. Just take me, Ya Rabbil Alameen, from the fatigue, from the stress. In any case, the paradigm that is Islam Ahlul Bayt seeks to familiarize an individual rather than make an individual unaware and distant from the concept of death. One figure in folklore, in mythology, in cultural customs, that is always the most despised figure, and across all nations of society, through generations, is probably the angel of death, depicted like he's the Grim Reaper, like he's just after to take your soul, that we hate for that meeting to happen. What is he usually holding? A scythe, he's gonna grab away a person's soul, wearing a dark hoodie, scary Halloween looking. Come to Islam Ahlul Bayt. Malikul Maut, Israel, hadith ends with alayhi salam. Why? Because he is a servant of Allah, following the decree of Allah. He is also a lover of Ahlul Bayt, and he loves those who love Ahlul Bayt. And the ahadith make mention he doesn't approach a mu'min in that scary image that most depictions show. Rather, he comes and he sends his salams. And the moment of transition from the dunya to the akhirah, look at the hadith by the 6th Imam of Ahlul Bayt. He says it beautifully. It's as if the comfort of transition, as if you changed your dirty clothes that were stained with mud to new, clean, fresh clothes. Have you ever, maybe when you were younger, all of us are young, played soccer, and then your jersey, which was once white, has now mud all over it, sweat, fatigue, maybe blood, you ran into someone, I don't know, grass, stains, and you come home, and your mother has the most beautiful, white, soft, fresh out of the, you can say, washer, dryer, so it's still warm, and you take that off after a cleanse. Nothing can describe that, by the way. That cannot be mimicked unless you experience it. Imam al-Sadiq says, the transition for a mu'min from this dunya to the akhirah is better than that. It's as if you took off old clothes and you put on fresh, new, clean ones. You feel better. It's better for your mental health. You've entered an environment where now suddenly you feel welcome to be. You look forward to it. No one looks forward to having stained clothes. No one looks forward to being in that state that is unhygienic, probably smell bad, probably doesn't even obviously make you look good. You look forward to cleaning it. The mu'min, going back to the hadith by Amir al-Mu'mineen, sees this life in one way. In the dunya, what? Sijnul mu'min wa jannatul kafir. That the dunya is the prison for the believer, but the Jannah for the disbeliever. A heaven for the disbeliever, because a heaven is eternal. So the disbeliever is deceived, thinking they're here for good and they're here to stay. Whereas the mu'min says this is prison. And that the transition, the Imam continues, from this life to the next is more proportionate than the transition from the last life to the dunya. What is he referring to? What was the last life? The last life was called Alamur Rahim, the realm of the womb. You and I all came from a different realm of existence. That was the womb of our mothers. When we lived in that moment, you had consciousness, but not enough to necessarily process or make decisions. But could you imagine if you had a higher IQ while you were inside the womb of your mother, and you said to yourself, this is it. This is life. There is nothing beyond this. I love this. I get free food. The umbilical cord just feeds me. I don't have to do anything. I'm surrounded by an enclosure that's warm when it's cold outside, that's cold when it's warm outside, and I have my privacy and it's quiet. Then when you're born, you think to yourself, what was I living in? This is real life. The akhirah is more proportionate than the transition from the womb to the dunya. What are we expecting then? What is there to come? Yet some people want to stay. Some people want to imagine if a person told you from the inside of their mother's womb, I am good, I love this, this is real life. God says in the Holy Quran, وَإِنَّ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةَ لَهِيَ الْحَيَوَانِ. That the afterlife, it's real hayat. It's real living. You think you're alive now? Afterlife you will live. Why? Because truly, honestly, life is not really life if there's an end to it. That's not living. That's temporarily staying until there's an end waiting for you. Life is eternal. God says that afterlife, it's real life because there is no end to it, so you can call it objectively living. وَإِنَّ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةَ لَهِيَ الْحَيَوَانِ. But people, and I say this not to make jest, and I can only sympathize. How many people hate the idea of that moving on and transition? It's not easy. Like I said, and I stress again, I can't convince you look forward to death. In fact, that's almost a senile perspective, that you want to end it. In fact, that could be a makruh, if not haram perspective, because then you will struggle to find purpose in your life. That's not what Ahlul Bayt taught us. They made it very clear. Amir al-Mu'minin said, اعمل لدنياك, work for your dunya as if you will live forever. كأنك تعيش أبدا. Work in this life as if you will live forever. وَاعْمَلْ لِآخِرَتَكَ كَأَنَّكَ تَمُوتُ غَدًا. And work for your akhirah as if your last day is tomorrow. What a beautiful quote. What a beautiful. I wish more people can learn the principles of Amir al-Mu'minin here. If people learn this, depression will be a thing of the past, identity crisis as well. Why? And I combine depression with an identity crisis. Why? Because people like to say, what's the point? When they get hit with one or two struggles, too many they can't handle, enough obstacles and pitfalls, they lose a loved one, so they give up mentally. Why should I care? They get a chance and they say, I'm going to die anyways, and they miss their chance. There are opportunities that open for them. Maybe you and I have been in that situation. I can't tell you that I haven't, where I've been in a state so low. What's the meaning of all this? In the sense, why do I need to bother if there's an end date? If the only thing confirmed and guaranteed for me is death anyways, why should I invest so much? La, اعمل لدنياك, Imam Ali says. And for his sake I will do. Work for this life that you live as if you will live forever. What does that mean? It means have long-term plans. It means work thinking with your family in mind. Oh, you don't have a family? Your future family in mind. Work with a 10-year mindset. In the next 10 years, where will I be? I want to be in a happy, healthy relationship with children. Brother Amin is insisting we should all have more kids. That's his suggestion. But we should have a bigger, beautiful community. Work toward that. I want to be successful in my entrepreneurial business. I want to be someone that can give back to my community. But Habibi, that doesn't happen in a day. And Rome was not built in a day. These things take years. So you have to think long term. Imam Ali says, do it. اعمل لدنياك كأنك تعيش أبدا. As if you will live forever. Don't say, I'm too old for it. La 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 la. No. No one's too old for anything, Habibi. No one's too young and no one's too old for anything, within reason, obviously. Siraj ad-Din al-Sakaki was a scholar in Baghdad. He was a locksmith and he made very high quality locks. One day, the Khalifa called him and said, I need a personal lock to my room in the palace in Baghdad. So he's like, I got you. So he made him a very nice lock, intricate, beautiful, with details, and he gave it to him. The king and the Khalifa, the Abbasid Khalifa at that moment, said that I am so happy with what you did. A servant was walking by. The servant says, Amir al-Mu'mineen, the Abbasid Khalifa, this is how they would address them. Who is this? The Khalifa was so proud that he gave him this beautiful lock. He praised him by saying, هذا عالم كبير. This is a big scholar. So Siraj ad-Din al-Sakaki says to himself, he called me a scholar. I'm not, but out of praise he called me that. The thing is, can I be a scholar? But the problem was, he was in his 50s. Is 50 too old, by the way? Is 50 old, young? 50 is young. 50 is the new 12. Oh, no, astaghfirullah. 50 is the new 22. Don't quote me on that. 50 is the new 22. Why? I know people, they don't have issues, but don't pretend that they have issues. Let's go and enjoy company. I'm my back, but you don't even have back issues. But when you clock 50, you always assume you're in pain. No, if you can, go. Be fit. You are. There's no issue. Work, as if you will live forever. Siraj ad-Din al-Sakaki says, I'm in my 50s. How can I be an alim deen? You know what, let me give it a shot. Goes and signs up at the Hawza of Kufa. Goes to Kufa and he begins sitting in these halaqat that they were teaching. The scholar that's teaching, among him are students less than half of his age. 20, 19, 18-year-olds, and there's this 50-year-old. I remember in Karbala, 2015, having had the honor to do my studies there. Hawzat al-Imam al-Sadiq in Karbala. I was the youngest one there. I had just finished high school and I went. And so we had a roommate. I asked him, how old are you, Haji? And he's like, I won't tell you my age, I'm too embarrassed, but I'll tell you how many kids I have. I said, how many? He said, 18. It's like, one for each ma'soom and the companions. That's 18. He's like, but don't tell the other students. I'm like, there's no need, just look at you, Habibi. Wonderful, it's good that you're studying. Siraj ad-Din al-Sakaki comes and he sees that the classmates are like, could be his grandchildren. And so he's pushing through, which is the mindset to have, by the way. You're never too old to start. So then the teacher is making a lesson about purifying leather, which originally is from a haram source. So for example, dog leather is haram, meaning in the sense that it's najis if you touch it when it's contaminated with water. The same hukum applies if the dog is alive, but in this case, theoretically. So he said, in the opinion of Abu Hanifa, the Imam of the Hanafi school of thought, if you tan dog leather skin, that's what they were doing at the time, the leather of the skin of the dog becomes tahir. Tomorrow, I'm going to test you guys again about this mas'ala. Come back and remember the answer and the question. The next day, Siraj ad-Din comes and he's sitting there and he's waiting for him to be potentially chosen, but he doesn't want to be the first to be asked. So as he's sitting, the teacher looks at him and he says, as our elder, I'm going to ask first. What was the lesson last night about? He said, accidentally flipping the words, if you tan the skin of Abu Hanifa, he becomes tahir. He's like, Ya Siraj ad-Din, you flipped the right on the left. Maybe this class is too advanced for you. He leaves and he's sad. He goes and he walks by a river. I imagine the Furat if you're in Kufa. And the river, he notices that there is a rock in the middle of the river where the water flows directly through it. After the years of penetrating over it, it has now created a path and a channel through the rock. But it took obviously many, many years to do that from the amount of pressure and force. So Siraj ad-Din is looking and he's thinking. He said, subhanallah, if a rock so hard, with water so soft, with time can split, then maybe someone so old as me, with time can learn. And he returned back and he continued studying for the next, I believe, about 40-something odd years. And he became one of the grandest scholars that has published a remarkable work on the fiqh of ahkam, interestingly, because that was his earlier issue, called Mafatih al-Ulum, the Keys of Wisdom by Siraj ad-Din al-Sakaki. He didn't let this idea of age, let me not do it, I'm going to die anyways. This mindset limits you, because if you put in the mind that I will live forever, don't fool yourself, but say, let's say it's as if I do, what can stop you from accomplishing what you want? But then worship Allah, according to Amir al-Mu'mineen, as if you will die tomorrow. Some people, if you tell them tomorrow's the last day, from now they will begin. But the thing is, no one knows when the last day is. So the Imam says, how about you at least pretend it's tomorrow? And the Imam is giving you a courtesy when he's saying tomorrow. It could literally be next minute. He says tomorrow. How do you even know you'll make it till tomorrow? How do you know? You don't. So he's doing you a favor when he is saying tomorrow. In fact, right now as we leave, right at this moment, right now as we whatever. This mindset is the ultimate thing that we're trying to address. Of don't say, why does it even matter if I'm going to end? It doesn't work like that. And I can only sympathize with people that have loved ones that have left them. Because it's almost like you took a part of me, Ya Allah. Might as well have taken me anyways. Because no matter how much I am tormented in life, I can handle it, but not those I love. And I can only sympathize with those who have loved ones that have left them. One day, a companion by the name of Abu Talha in Medina al-Munawwara, his son was very ill. He was a young boy. His wife, Talha, says, why don't you go to the Messenger of God? Rasulullah is your neighbor. Then what doctor do you need? Go to the Messenger, the doctor of doctors. His dua comes from the heavens, not from the pharmacy. Why don't you go to him and say, Ya Rasulullah, pray for my child. Look at wasila here, by the way. You can go to Allah, but if Allah used Rasulullah to talk to you, who am I not to use Rasulullah wa al Rasul to talk to Allah? Allahumma salli. Talha says to his wife, it's a beautiful proposition. I'll let the Messenger of God pray for my child. And is the dua of Rasulullah mustajab? Of course, so it's going to happen. As he leaves, halfway on his way to Masjid al-Nabawi, his son dies. Talha notices, and now she becomes scared because her husband is going to do what? To pray for the child with Rasulullah. The child has now died, so they miss their chance. She also knows one thing. Her husband has anger issues, apparently. So she's worried that when he comes back with this plan that he had, and now it's all ruined, he might let it out on her. So what did she decide to do? A very creative and clever woman. She returned for him. She waited for him to return. He returned. She said, Aba Talha. He says to her, where's my son? She says he's sleeping. And in Islam, death is a form of sleep. Like sleep is a form of death. She's not lying. He's sleeping right now. He says, okay. You look different. She says, I have a question. Do you remember the necklace our neighbor lent to me? He says, yeah, what about it? She gave it to me to borrow and return eventually. He says, yeah. She says, I decide I want to keep it now. He says, but you can't. It's not yours. It's hers. She says, but no. I know she gave it to me to borrow for a short time period, but I decide not to give it back. I don't want it. He says, under what terms? You're not allowed to do that. It's hers. She just gave it to you to take, to hold. It's an amanah. It's a trust. She says, then how about if I tell you, Allah gave you and I something, and He wants it back, and He took it. He says, what do you mean? She said, our son has now passed away. He says, subhanallah, you're right. He came from God, and now God said, give him back to me. So who are we to complain? Inna lil wa inna ilayhi. So if we are from him, why am I saying, no, give him back? Allah gave him. Allah gave her. And we should do the best to take care of them. That's why you have no right to abuse others, to speak ill of others, to attack physically others, because guess who they belong to? لا تكن عبدا لغيرك وقد خلق الله حرا. Imam Amir al-Mu'minin says, do not be a slave to others. When God made you free, you have no right. No one is property to another person. We are all, if we even want to use that word property, because property means inanimate, insignificant, disposable, replaceable. But if we can still use that term, property of Allah, that's it, nothing more and nothing less. So with that mindset, inna lillah, who am I to say, give him back to me? Yes, it's not easy, but I'll tell you how to cope. Who is anyone willing to share, just by a brief gesture, did anyone lose someone very close to them in the last week, the last 7 days in their life. So I did. My grandfather passed away in Najaf exactly 7 days ago, my father's father. And I had that mentality. It's not easy. It's haqq. And I struggled. And the struggle is bigger when you're not there. So the whole family goes on by myself. And I'm telling you not to win sympathy points, but the best examples are personal examples. Because I'll tell you what I went through. Maybe it can help. The first moment you acknowledge it is the easiest. Once you get after that, everything will open naturally. Acknowledge it, don't be in denial. Sometimes you deny. Why did this have to happen? No, it's okay. Belongs to God, returns to God. I could have done, I should have done. Well, it's too late. And I will live with that guilt. I will, for sure. Because I wish I would have spent more time. Called him again. And every time the family calls, I always make sure, can I talk to Jaddu? I love hearing his voice. And because I know he loves hearing my voice. But, you always feel like you haven't done enough. So the first thing you can do is not be in denial. Just say, I accept it, that it happened. And then remind yourself, but wait a minute. He's with a good Lord. A Lord that will treat him much better than how I will ever treat my own grandfather. Or my son, or my daughter, or my mother, or my father. I only want them because I want to spread my love all around them and take care of them again. But now this is a sign that once they are no longer with you, how will you treat those around you from now on? Because it can happen. يا راحم الشيخ الكبير ويا رازق الطفل الصغير سبحانك يا لا إله إلا أنت الغوث خلصنا من النار يا رب. What's the nar? Dunya. Because الدار الآخرة هي الحيوان. It's real life, Ya Rabb al-Alameen. The first step is accept it. Don't be in denial. The second step, pray. Who are you without salah? No, who are you? Body and flesh. There's something called spirit beyond this. Otherwise, you and the animal are the same. But no, I recognize there's a connection to the jinan called ibadah. Why? Because as-salah mi'rajul mu'min. That prayer is the ascension of the believer. So you pray. That's why salat al-wahsha. That's why there's salat al-mayyit. That's why there's a salah, sadaqah, tabarru' that you just pray, oh Allah, give these 2 rak'atain. It's mustahab, you can just pray as such to those that have left me. And then you remember the beautiful hadith by Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, to which he says, إِذَا مَاتَ الْإِنسَانِ انْقَطَعَ عَنْهُ عَمَلُهُ إِلَّا مِنْ ثَلَاثٍ. If the human passes away, all of their actions are severed except 3. مِنْ صَدَقَةٍ جَارِيَةٍ. From a charity that continues to work. You start a fund. You contribute, no one told me to say this by the way, to a masjid, to the building of a masjid, to the creation of a child club, book club, madrasa, women's club for your community that they can benefit with. Brothers and sisters, wallah, don't take this for granted. You don't know how lucky you are to have a masjid. And yes, masajid. Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen was walking by a church with his companions. This is the Nahj al-Balagha. And they looked at the church and they said, Ya Ali, kam ushrik Allahu biha. How much did God become disobeyed in such a place? To which the Imam replied, Bal kam ubid Allahu biha. Rather, how much was Allah worshipped in it? Why do you think cup half empty? They are still trying at the very least to worship Allah. They believe in the same God you believe in, minus some details. They believe in the Prophet that you believe in, but we all have aqaidi issues and dispositions that we disagree with. What? The Shia don't have aqaidi issues? Let alone the Shia and the Christian? Of course. One man will have a different date for mourning. This is just mourning. And the tariq is written, but people have different dates. But these are not reasons to argue because I unite under the principles with you of La ilaha illallah, done. Of humanitarian rights, done. And Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen said it, if you're Shi'i, you accept this. I don't care what else you might be, but if you're Shia, you accept this. And nasu sinfan. People are 2. Either your brothers or sisters in your religion, because innamal mu'minun ikhwa, or your equals in humanity. Anything besides that, sure, show them a level of less significance. But last I check, You, if you're a Muslim, my brother and sister, done. For that reason, I respect you. For that reason, I will not handle seeing you get abused. That if I see your children get hurt, I see them like my children. For how long do we tolerate injustice to children or people that marginalize and oppress because they're not mine? Who makes them better than yours? They're the children of God, metaphorically speaking. They're God's creations. Why? Because they belong to Him. An act of injustice there is an act of injustice anywhere. And for that reason, الناس صنفان أما أخ لك في الدين or what? نظير لك في الخلق, or you're equal in إنسانية, humanity. What does that mean? You have a nose, I have a nose. You have eyes, I have eyes. You have a beating heart, I do too. For that reason, I will respect you. Anything less than that is animal. And the world of the animal, we can eat from them, we can hunt them, but not the human being, because they have a karama from Allah. وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. And we have honored the children of Adam. Salamullahi alayh. For that reason, my dear respected brothers and sisters, the sooner we begin accepting that God has made this process a ni'mah for you and I. The transition is a day that we look forward to because we know we don't have skeletons in our closet. Amam Allah. Min sadaqatin jariyah. A charity that continues working. This effort, community efforts. أو علم ينتفع به. Or knowledge that raises them. How did you teach your children? Did you teach the community? Did you write a book? And I'm not saying you have to do that to share ilm, because after you die, everything stops, except these things. When you teach someone something, that person lives forever. Give them the fish, one day they'll eat. Teach them how to fish, forever they begin eating, and they owe it to you. Because I would not have known this had it not been for you who has a son. Teach the poor boy. Don't neglect him. Because in those first 7 years, the son is begging for your attention. Baba, how are you? And the man is sitting, leave me alone right now, I'm watching. I'm reading. Don't be too surprised that when the son becomes 14, then you want to come and talk to him. Baba, how are you? Leave me alone, dad. What goes around comes around. Kama tudin tudan. Yeah, I'm mentioning these quotes in English. Rasulullah said all of them. What you do will be done to you as well. There was a young man who had his father and he had his grandson. The father became too old to handle and take care of, which, by the way, I don't know why is a hassle for some people. It's your honor to take care of your father, even if he needs washing, even if he needs to be carried. Who cares? Well, he did it to you when you were little. What happens when the roles reverse? Shame on the one who doesn't care for their parents when they become older. Shame on that individual. They took care of you, you take care of them. Objectively, that is immoral. Because if you're not going to take care of those who took care of you in any metric, theologically haram, ethically wrong, biologically, they took care of you from a sense of logic, from biology, you should take care of those that gave you everything to at least pay homage. An atheist will agree to that. This man said, it's too much to take care of my father. So he took and built a shed, a work area in the backyard. The shed, he converted it to a little room for his father, elderly man in his 90s, a bed, a washroom, and some food. So he would leave him there and not in the house, too much to handle. One day he goes and he checks on him and he saw that he passed away. So then, after the funeral finishes, this father with his young son, he's holding his hand and he now tears down the shed. The son looks at the dad and you know what he says? He says, Baba, why are you tearing down Jaddu, granddad's room? He says, because he's no longer around. We don't need it anymore. The son, you know what he said? He said, but where am I going to put you when you become older, Baba? What goes around comes around. Make sure you treat with respect and love. Share that knowledge to the young boy that's 7, that's little. And I say 7 because Rasulullah said 7. And لَعِبْهُ سَبْعًا. Play with them for the first 7 years. وَأَدِّبْهُ سَبْعًا. Then be disciplinary for the next 7 years. Not rough, but disciplinary. Now there's no more room to mess around, but still be kind and tender. Then وَصَاحِبْهُ سَبْعًا. Then be their friend for the next 7 years until they're that old, and just be a guide and companion with them. That your best friend should have been your dad, because dad was always there. Some people, when they hear the car has now parked outside the house, they shiver. That shouldn't be the dad that we know. Dad, and if you're to be a dad soon, they should say, Dad is home. They should run to the door. And some of these fathers, wallah, they're in their 60s, they're in their 70s, but when you sit with them, they bring this life and energy, and it's like, I want to spend more time with you, for goodness sake, than some of these knuckleheads vaping, and I don't know. Some of these. Allahul Musta'an. In any case, in that mindset, that is the ideal Islamic mindset. علم ينتفع به. To have knowledge. When you leave, it continues to teach and disseminate. What's the last thing? وَوَلَدٌ صَالِحٌ يَدْعُو لَهُ. And a pure son or daughter making dua for them. What else can I do for him? Except say, Allahumma irhamhuma kama rabbayani صغيرة واجزهما بالإحسان إحسانا يا رب العالمين. Dua, wallah, dua will do. It'll send wonders and help and aid. And there were those, when the messenger of God died, they couldn't believe it. What did they do? They left the deen of Islam. ارتدوا الناس. And that's not from me. Quran said, وَمَا مُحَمَّدٌ إِلَّا رَسُولٌ قَدْ خَلَتْ مِنْ قَبْلِهِ الرُّسُلُ أَفَإِن مَاتَ أَوْ قُتِلَ انقلبتم على أعقابكم. That the messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam is nothing but a messenger. If he was to die or get killed, would you turn around on your heel? It's an idiom. Or would you commit apostasy because he's no longer there? How many people committed apostasy? In fact, not even in Rasulullah's life. I'll tell you, Rasulullah looks at Az-Zubair ibn al-Awwam, you know the famous Talha and Zubair. He says, Ya Zubair, how much do you love Ali? He says, I will give my life for him. He's like, there will be a day you will try to get his life. He says, I can't believe that, Ya Rasulullah. Zubair loved Rasulullah. There's a poem that's made, whenever the sword of Zubair is out, know that Rasulullah is saved. That's how much he sacrificed. Who is he? Az-Zubair ibn al-Awwam bin Khuwaylid. So who's he? Who does he remind you of? Sayyidah Khadija's nephew. Al-Awwam and Sayyidah Khadija are siblings. So he is Sayyidah Khadija's nephew. This man has everything going for him, and he loves Rasulullah. He loved Fatima al-Zahra as well, because he was in the house during the ambush. If you read, Az-Zubair was in the residence. Az-Zubair, among a few others as well. So what happens? Suddenly, the change occurs where this man sees one too many deaths happening, his iman weakens. And the day comes where the imam sees him and he says, Ya subhanallah, one day with me, the other day against me. And that's with Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen. Come to Karbala. Shaykh al-Mufid, radwanullahi alayh, in his Kitab al-Ikhtisas, and the Shaykh al-Kulayni in al-Kafi Sharif, and Rijal al-Kashi narrate the following hadith that Imam al-Sadiq said, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh, ارتدت الناس بعد قتل الحسين. People committed apostasy after the death of Imam al-Hussein. Yani people relinquished their Islam. Why? They couldn't believe it. How on earth does the son of Rasulullah get killed the way he got killed, and his sister Zainab captive, and his nieces and nephews all over the field, whether they were in Sham, Kufa, or Karbala? And Yazid is the one called Khalifatullah. I don't want this religion anymore. ارتدت الناس بعد قتل الحسين إلا ثلاث, except 3 people. Shaykh al-Mufid makes mention in regards to these individuals. Abu Khalid al-Kabuli. Abu Khalid al-Kabuli was from the companions of Imam Zain al-Abidin. He has beautiful supplications and du'as. He was one that said, no way, no way. Yes, Imam Hussein was killed, but that doesn't mean God's deen is not around anymore. Abu Khalid al-Kabuli, interesting, from Kabul, Afghanistan. And Yahya ibn al-Tawil, he is called Babu Zainul Abidin, the door of Imam Zainul Abidin. How Imam Amir al-Mu'minin was Babu Madinatu Ilmi Rasulillah. Yahya ibn al-Tawil was like the man, if you want to get to Imam Zain al-Abidin, Ali ibn al-Husayn, you got to go through him. He stayed firm on the wilayah. And Jubair bin Mut'im. Jubair bin Mut'im, these three were the companions of Imam Zain al-Abidin. Ulama make mention with obvious additions such as Jabir bin Abdullah al-Ansari, among the few others as well, Kumayn bin Ziyad al-Nakha'i, because he died after Karbala, even though he was a companion of Imam Ali, by al-Hajjaj bin Yusuf al-Thaqafi. These are accepted, but in regards to the general ummah, not the already established companions, these are the three that... Why? How could he have died and Yazid stays alive? How could the man who brought this religion as a rahmah to us be replaced by a man who plays with monkeys and drinks and womanizes on a daily basis? How? And Hussein lay in the ground of Karbala. This deen is not realistic. It's gone anymore because God wouldn't allow it. This mindset sometimes lingers in our hearts. Why would this happen? Why would God let this happen? You know, when Hurricane Katrina happened, I remember reading, so I'm not that old, but I remember reading an article by CNN that there was a wave of apostasy by some Christian communities because their churches were demolished. So they were like, God wouldn't let our churches be demolished. Maybe God doesn't really care. So there was, for a period, a spike of atheism from people who were formerly practicing church-going Christians. Why? Because the churches on the coast were all destroyed. So they said, you know, if God was real, why would he destroy our churches? Let's make this happen. Then, not considering that the earth has a function, a system, natural disasters is normal. You signed up for this the day you were born. It's called tectonic plates and tsunamis. And the disaster, the waves that are a disaster for you are a blessing for the farmer down the field. He doesn't have to water his plants. So what's evil exactly? Relative. I'm not going to say a tsunami is good or evil. It's just water that comes and goes. What happens is my response to it. Am I going to now say, oh, for example, other natural disasters, war breaks. People kill other people in mass numbers. A dictator kills other people. And what do some people say? Why did you let this happen? Yeah, but who's doing it? Why are you quiet? Sometimes it takes an outspoken voice. Sometimes it's someone that says, maybe I have a dream today. Sometimes it's someone that says, al-mawtu lana aada. Now, I'm not making comparisons, but if we can use real-world examples from the kuffar world, for goodness sake, maybe the Muslim world will wake up. Instead of complaining, why is it like this, and why are we not seeing any change? When was the last time you donated? When was the last time you sent? When was the last time you wrote? Besides complain and make dua, Rasulullah says, إِنَّمَا الدِّينَ الْمُعَامَلَةِ. Deen is action. Don't sit down and be quiet. Rasulullah said that if you see injustice, change it with your hands. If you can't change it with your hands, change it with your tongue. If you cannot even do that, change it with your heart. Make dua. Imam al-Mujtaba says that the distance between the samawat and the ard, صيحة المظلوم بالدعاء. Ah, Ya Allah. The heavens has not been penetrated. Make the dua, but first exhaust your efforts. No more complaining. Sayyida Maryam, she's my role model and yours. Forget me and you. The church is here. She's their role model. She's about to go into labor. She's waiting for a society that will give her the worst allegation. What's the worst thing a man can call another lady? وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. That she has defied her chastity. And she's going through the pain and the pains, and she's crying and screaming. What does she say? لَيْتَنِي مُتُّ قَبْلَ هَذَا. How I wish I would have been dead before this. It's not the pain of birth, although that hurts. I can only sympathize with the women and the mothers who've gone through childbirth. Us men, we cannot understand. But it's not just that. You know what else it is? How can I face going back to a society holding a baby and they say, Astaghfirullah. Your father was not a bad man. Your mother was a chaste woman. No lady deserves to hear such allegations. Astaghfirullah. She's like, just, I wish you killed me before this. What does God say? She needs some energy. He says, وَهُزِّي إِلَيْكِ بِجِذْعِ النَّخْلَةِ تُسَاقِطْ عَلَيْكِ رُطَبًا جَنِيًّا. Maryam, I know you're going through so much pain and you want some of that energy. Shake the bottom of the palm tree. She's literally on her back, one hand on the floor, the other hand on the tree, next to the Furat, or next to a river rather. And she doesn't know what to do. She's like, you want me to shake the palm tree? Yeah, I'm going through so much and I still have to do work. Yes, shake it, then the dates fall. What, is God incapable of sending her a loaf of bread? He brought down Jesus a table spread, for goodness sake. He can send her anything, but he wants her to put it to action. Rasulullah says, what does he say? That اعقل فتوكل. Get your camel, tie it, then have tawakkul ala Allah. Don't say, I'm just going to leave it. Allah will take care of it. Allah will take, but put your effort first. Tie it so it doesn't run away. Tie it so no one steals it. So you don't say, Ya Allah, why did you let this happen? No. Why did you let this happen? You have to put the effort. Maryam, you do that, I will give you. تُسَاقَطْ عَلَيْكِ. The rutab, the dates will fall, but you need to put some effort. She does so. Look how Allah rewards her. Until today, she's the most honored of women. God says that you are Sayyidati Nisa al-Alameen until another Sayyida emerges, whereby she says, Oh Father, but I thought that was Maryam. You're giving me this title today. He says, Habibati, my beloved, she is Sayyidati Nisa Alamiha. She is the lady of all ladies of her era. What are you? Sayyidati Nisa al-awwalina wal-akhirin. The leader of all of them, from the beginning to the end. Fatimatu Zahra, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayha. Look at the love a father has to his daughter. I can only imagine how much he loves her. You know where that's reflected? Hussein and his beloved daughter. Because how much do you love Imam al-Hussein? A lot. So how much did he love his children? A lot. And more than you can ever comprehend. Imam al-Hussein has poetry of love about his daughter. When was the last time you wrote poetry about your daughter, about your son, about your wife? Imam Hussein does. لعمرك إنني لأحب دارا تحل بها سكينة والرباب أحبهما وأبذل جل مالي وليس بلائم فيها عتاب سيد الشهداء. How I love a house which has inside it my Sukaina and my Rabab, her mother. How I love them so much and spend all my money on them. And for the one that complains, why the attention you give? Don't worry, you don't know what I have. Look how much he loves them. Look how much he does this. When was the last time you did something like that? Some people are now thinking, yalla, now spend. But it's out of love. It's out of courtesy. Look at Sayyid al-Shuhada that I can imagine. Were there those that said, why do you love them so much? Ya Aba Abdullah, those who you loved and wrote poetry of love. Look at on today and a day like today, how they are treated. In the court of Sham, on a night like tonight, the family has arrived and they are sitting in the worst conditions. The cellars is one that is crammed with the family of Al Muhammad, among them Imam Zayn al-Abidin, among them Kulthum, and among them Sukaina and Ruqayya and Zaynab al-Kubra. In that moment, the wife of Yazid ibn Muawiyah by the name of Hind bint Ubaidillah at-Taymi, she says, who are these people that have now arrived? The response came, They were a group of Khawarij and rebels. You remember the Khawarij? Khawarij and rebels. But where are they from? The response came, they're rebels from the land of Medina al-Munawwira. Hind, wife of Yazid, said, you know the land of Medina, what does it have? Rasulullah. But before that, I lived in Medina and I was a servant in one of the homes. Can I see them? Queen, with all her luxury. They bring her to the cellar and they bring her throne. So she sits on the throne, not on the floor. Peace be upon those who have to sit on that floor. She goes in and she sees them in their state, and she immediately sits next to the throne, not on it, out of respect for the land of Medina. And she looks. One of them scratches on her face. The other one, marks of lashes over her. Disheveled, weathered, tired, thirsty. It's not like they continue to give them water. Thirsty and tired. In chains, young girls. The chains were not chains that were given individually. One would be taller, one would be shorter. They would have to tiptoe because they were carried together by neck. The young would tiptoe. And now they're able to rest and they see this lady has entered. She then looks and says, can I please request that I have a discussion with one of you, please? She looks at who appears to be the matriarch from among them. And she says to her, what is it that you require? She says, I heard you come from Medina. I need to ask you about a house in Medina. My memories are great. There was a house that I used to serve in as a maid when my father died. And they took me in. But wallah, they did not treat me like a maid. They treated me like one of their own. Which house is that? The house of Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. I would serve, I would comb some of the girls, I would tend to them, and I hated it when they moved from Medina to Kufa, because then the Khalifa Muawiyah took me because of my beauty and made me marry his son Yazid. That's my situation. Do you know that house? Of course. Then can I ask you about some of the members of the house? Can I ask you about Abul Fadl al-Abbas? I remember him when he was young, how he would serve his father Ali. Do you know what happened to him? Where did he go? To which she then replied, if you ask me about Abul Fadl al-Abbas, if you look outside by the gates of this town, there is his head on the spear. She then began to say, can I ask you about a young man by the name of Hassan ibn Ali? He lays in Medina poisoned. Can I ask you about Hussein ibn Ali? Whatever happened to Hussein? She then replied, see the head next to Abbas. That is Hussein ibn Ali. Then she began to cry and she asked her one more. Can I ask you about Zainab al-Hashemiyah? What happened to her? Where is Zainab today? She doesn't realize what happened to Zainab, even though she is talking to her. What did she see in Karbala that changed her way? She then replied, if you ask me about Zainab al-Hashemiyah, I don't know where she went, but if you ask me about Zainab al-Masbiyah, Zainab the captive, then you're looking at her. Then Hind stood and ran to Yazid to yell at him. As she was running, her hijab began to fall. Yazid looked at her screaming, watch out, your hijab. She then replied, how dare you? How dare you ask me about my hijab when the hijab of the daughters of Rasulullah is ripped into pieces? How dare you ask me about my hijab when the daughters of Muhammad are in that state that you put them in? Soon that night, we then would hear the call of a young girl crying out, Abba ya Hussein, Abba ya Hussein, Father Hussein, where did you go? Then the noise would increase until Yazid became furious. He then said, "What is that noise?" The response came back, "It is the daughter of Hussein." They say that she saw in her dream her father saying, "Beloved Sukaina, beloved Ruqayya, it's moments and I will see you. Don't worry, be patient." And then she calls out, "Abba ya Hussein wa abata wa Husseina." Yazid then said, "Then why do you wait? Go and give her the head of her father." They bring the head of Imam al-Hussein covered in a pall. As they approach her, she says, "Why did you bring me this? I am asking for my father." As she removes the covering, she sees the severed head of her father, Abi Abdullah. She then throws herself, a young 5-year-old girl, calling out, "Abba, Abba, من الذي قطع رأسك?" "Father, father, who was it that severed your head?" She continues to call out until the noise goes low and low, and then Imam Zain al-Abidin looks at Zainab and says, "Amma Zainab, إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون عظم الله لك الأجر." Hussein lays in Karbala, but now his daughter lay in Damascus. When the nurse came to wash her poor little body, she came back to Sayyida Zainab and said, "I can't wash her." She said, "Why?" She said, "Was she ill before she died?" She says, "No." She says, "Then what are these blue marks over her body?" Sayyida Zainab said, "Those are not the marks of an illness." She said, "Those are not the marks of an illness. Those are the slaps of shimmer and the whips of the enemies of Allah on her body." They didn't care how young she was, they kept pulling at her. "Then what are these marks on her ears?" "Those were when she had the earrings, they pulled them off of her." "Don't worry, she was not ill, but if she was, that would have been better. She was hit by the enemies of Allah. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. يا الله، اللهم إنا نسألك وندعوك باسمك العظيم الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم 10 times. يا الله، 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 يا الله. اللهم بفاطمة وأبيها وبعلها وبنيها والسر المستودع فيها شاف مرضانا، اقضي حوائجنا، فرج عنا. إلهي عجل ثم عجل لوليك الفرج. إلهي من كان مريض أو عنده مريض، إلهي بحق مريض كربلاء شافهم وعافهم يا الله. Brothers and sisters, there have been a few who have requested dua for their marhumeen. I also humbly request you recite Surah Al-Fatiha on the soul of my late grandfather, and for all of your marhumeen, especially, be them here, be them elsewhere, all across the world, for the Shia, wherever they may be, and those who are oppressed, and for the sake of the ulama and the shuhada and whoever requested. Rahimallah min qara surat al-mubarakat al-Fatiha, but before it the loudest of your salawat. ماتم الحسين وحسين.
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے اتارا بابا، جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے مارا بابا، جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے مارا بابا، جب مجھے آپ کے سب کے پڑے ہر تماچے پہ سکینہ نے، ہر تماچے پہ سکینہ نے پکارا بابا، جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے مارا بابا، جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے مارا، مجھے بالوں سے پکڑ کر تماچے مارے، مجھے بالوں سے پکڑ کر تماچے مارے، میں نے سرشن سے مانگا جو تمہارا بابا، جب مجھے آپ کے مارا بابا، جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے وہ جو آپ نے تحفے مجھے بخشے تھے، وہ جو نے تحفے مجھے بخشے تھے، ان کو بے دردی سے ظالم نے اتارا بابا، جب مجھے مارا بابا، جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے آپ کے سینے پہ آرام سے سونے والی، آپ کے سینے پہ آرام سے سونے والی، سو کے اب خاک پہ کر دی ہے گزارا بابا، جب مجھے کے قاتل نے مارا بابا، جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے روکے نیزہ پہ اسے دیکھوں تو دیکھوں کیسے، روکے نیزہ پہ اسے دیکھوں تو دیکھوں کیسے، میرا سفر تھا مجھے جان سے بھی پیارا بابا، جب مجھے آپ کے پڑے بابا، جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے مارا، راہواروں کے دورایا گیا ہے مجھ کو، ساتھ راہواروں کے دورایا گیا ہے مجھ کو، چور زخموں سے بدن میرا ہے سارا بابا، جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے مارا بابا، جب مجھے آپ کے پسلیاں توڑی تھی جس طرح
جس طرح میری دادی کی پسلیاں توڑی گئی میری دوبارہ بابا پسلیاں توڑی تھی جس طرح میری دادی کی پسلیاں توڑی تھی جس طرح میری دادی کی پسلیاں توڑی گئی میری دوبارہ بابا مجھے مارا بابا جب مجھے آپ کے قاتل نے مارا بابا جب مجھے آپ مارا بابا. Let's have a few words of Istiaza. Inshallah, please recite it. Abbas, Abbas, Ya Abul Fazl Abbas, 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 Ya Abul Fazl سکائے حرم رکھ لینا بھرم ہم در پہ تمہارے آئے سب مل کے عباس عباس یا اب سارے سہارے ٹوٹ چکے ہمیں اپنے پرائے لوٹ چکے اب سارے سہارے ٹوٹ چکے ہمیں اپنے پرائے لوٹ چکے تم اپنی پناہوں میں لے لو ہم سے بہت گھبرائے عباس اشکوں کی زبان اشکوں کی زبان پہچانتے ہو جو دل میں ہے وہ جانتے ہو اشکوں کی زبان پہچانتے ہو جو دل میں ہے وہ جانتے ہو ہم کہہ نہیں سکتے تم سن لو بس ہاتھوں کو پھیلائے عباس یا مولا مولا تم باب حائج ہو روزے پہ ہمیں بھی بلوالو مولا تم باب حائج ہو روزے پہ ہمیں بھی بلوالو کے سبب جو آ نہ سکے ہم ان کی عزیزیں بھیجتے ہیں عباس کھا کھا کے تماچے روتی
خاک پہ سوتی ہے، ارے کھا کھا کے تماچے روتی ہے، زندہ کی خاک پہ سوتی ہے، بجھ جائے پیاس سکینہ کی، بجھ جائے پیاس سکینہ کی، ہم آنکھوں میں آنسو لائے. آخری بات کر کے عباس یا الفضل عباس عباس الفضل عباس.
السلام عليك يا رسول الله، السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين، السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى، السلام عليك يا حسين شهيد كربلاء، السلام عليك يا جميع شهداء كربلاء ورحمة الله وبركاته، السلام عليك يا علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن الحسن والحسن بن علي. السلام عليك يا مولانا يا صاحب العصر والزمان، الأمان الأمان الأمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن، السلام عليك يا شريف القرآن، السلام عليك يا نعمة الإيمان، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.